watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Oh, yes. Good times in Leafs Nation. Not so much right now in Cancun. Presented by Betano, it's time for the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. It's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill, who unfortunately is still under the weather. What's up, buddy?
It is what it is, man. Couple rough days, couple rough nights. I don't know what to say. You plan a trip and you get sicker than a dog in more ways than once the whole damn time. Not very fun, but all I can do is look forward to my Leafs Morning Take tapings every morning at 11 a.m.
I know some people are listening and watching. This is the same guy who goes on rants and goes crazy about the Maple Leafs. Yes, it is. He's playing under the weather. We do appreciate that. But at the very least, you got to feel pretty positive about this Leafs team right now, right? Like, it's crazy how much a lot can change in a short amount of time. A week ago, we were talking about the sky falling because Morgan Rielly was suspended, right?
Yeah, it's more of that up and down, right? And I mean, lots of teams go through it. Look at the Oilers right now. You know, the Winnipeg Jets have had some ups and downs, and everyone goes through it. We just kind of do the whole microscope thing here, which
True
is what we do. And yeah, definitely in a high zone right now. It's very positive. It's kind of head scratching because how can they do so well with their big boys out? It's like I need that room, Sheldon Keefe, to like stop and have like a serious and honest conversation where you're actually verbalizing what's going on, saying, how come we can play at this level with this type of grit and energy and try and commitment to team things when our big boys are out, and we don't do it when they're there. I mean, you and Vic sent it to me today. First thing I opened up this morning. The Maple Leafs, when they're without Morgan Rielly, are 29-11. They're 10-2 without Tavares, 24-12 without Auston, 11-12 without Mitch, and 24-10 without Nylander. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That just doesn't make sense. Those are your best players, and you win without them.
Yeah, what I gathered is like Mitch Marner is everything. He's the MVP to this team. He should win the Norris Trophy. He should win the team MVP because they suck without him.
I don't know, man. It is an anomaly, but I think it should be addressed because listen, boys, like what is the rest, like the supporting cast? And you know, you got these Bobby McMann stepping up and you know, the supporting cast stepping up and doing their thing. So to me, it's like, okay, you feel the need to step up when those guys aren't there. I know just Morgan Rielly is missing right now, but this kind of started off with missing Mitch and missing Tavares to illness. And then you start to look at the numbers and it's a solid pattern of being able to play the hockey that everyone in this market desperately wants you to show when the guys aren't there. And, you know, maybe it's not on the big boys. Maybe it's on the supporting cast to say, do you guys just show up and expect the big boys to win all the time? Do you not think you have a role in this anymore? Do you feel like you have to take a back seat to the big boys and just allow them to do their thing? And do you guys live and die by whether those guys are putting up 4 points a night or not? Because that's not right either. And if it takes for some of them to be out of the lineup for them to go, okay, I got to bear down and bring my best stuff together, and you play like you have been playing the last 4 games, well, there's kind of the answer to all the problems in Leafs Nation. I mean, we do have really good high-end players that can win games single-handedly, multiple guys that can win games single-handedly. Look what Auston Matthews is doing right now. If you get everybody pulling on the same rope in the same direction, this team should be pretty goddamn good, whether they have the best defenseman in the world or not, whether changes are coming at the deadline or not. They've shown that when they come together and bear down and their backs up against the wall, there's a little bit of adversity, they tend to rise up, which is a good problem to have. But we got to verbalize that and figure that out in that room and understand that, hey, this is what it looks like. It doesn't matter who's in the lineup. It doesn't matter about anything else. Everyone's got to be pulling on this rope the same direction, just like this, just like you have in the last week.
Makes absolutely no sense, really. And we did talk about this last week when the whole rally thing went down. It's like, watch them go on a bit of a tear, a bit of a run. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. 4 straight wins without Morgan Rielly in the lineup at the Leafs Nation 401, where you can subscribe on YouTube. Hammer that like button, hammer that subscribe button. Help us out. Let's keep building this thing. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. If you can do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review with your thoughts on the podcast so far. That would be exceptional. So again, Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast for that. At the Leafs Nation 401, if you're just randomly listening or watching right now, please subscribe. Help us out. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off up to $10 in value and zero delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app. Enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25, uppercase for that. 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada. Subject to change. Terms apply. So the Leafs go into St. Louis. They sweep the season series in 6 days. There's so many statistics, Rosie, you can pull, but the big one for me is their overall dominance against the Western Conference this season. The Leafs 19-5-2 against the West, and I thought it was a real professional outing against the St. Louis Blues. A matinee affair. It had everything written to the Leafs losing that game. They found a way. They battled hard. Low event hockey. It was great to see. I won't lie.
Yeah, that record's no joke, man. I mean,
yeah,
it's always funny trying to battle against who's better. You can go look at the Stanley Cup winners over the last 25 years, whatever, but it kind of ebbs and flows on what's a stronger conference, the East or the West. And the Oilers were on that run. Vancouver's quite hot, and Colorado's out there. And I mean, the Winnipeg Jets are showing signs of this and that and the other thing. But the East has got all their stuff too, and you kind of forget about what's what. But when you look at that record with the Maple Leafs and how they do against the Western Conference, it's pretty dominant. Hey, like that goes back a little while.
Well, this season,
That's just
19-5-2
this season. Hey, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they played that many, but yeah, it's impressive, man. There's lots of numbers that you can grab from the Leafs that are impressive that are showing all kinds of positive signs, right? And I mean, the people that watch it every day and dissect it in and out know that there's some holes in this lineup, but I don't think there's what do you think? There's 4 teams in the whole league that wouldn't say we don't have many holes in our lineup
True.
or in our game. Like everyone's got them. And I like the fact that the Leafs are going in the right direction and finding the right things lately. And it happens to be not when they're given gifts and, oh, well, we won that game, but we got 5 power plays. And, oh, our goalie stood on his head and their guy got yanked. Or no, they're just showing up with whatever the hell they get given for a lineup, whether it's suspensions or illnesses or injuries or whatever. In goaltender situation, we still haven't even got Woll back. And they're kind of running through teams and playing some solid hockey, like 60-minute efforts, contributions from everybody. I mean, that Bobby McMann empty net goal, I know it's an empty net goal, but that's the stuff that just fires me up, man. Like, just chase the prick down, find a way to out-battle him without taking a penalty, grabbing it and ripping it and ending that fucking game. Like, I love that shit. Bobby McMann's on absolute fire, and you need guys like that to step up, to be like, hey, I know you didn't know much about me. I know you didn't think much about me. I know you didn't put a lot of, you didn't put a lot into me as far as being a help to this organization this year, but I'm here and I'm ready to rock. Put me in a position that'll help this team out because I'm ready to rock. And every team that ever wins the Stanley Cup or goes on runs has guys like that step up and go, where did this guy come from? I don't know, but I'm sure as hell glad that he's on our team buzzing right now. And it's happening at the time in the year where you'd like it to happen. Right before that, you're trying to figure out what you need at the trade deadline, trying to figure out what you need looking at playoffs, and team's looking as well-rounded right now as they ever have, and I think that's a real positive.
Man, they're calling him Bobby McMatthews. 6 goals in the past 3 outings, 8 in the season, quietly now on pace, like a 20-goal pace. I think he's got 8 goals in 30 games. Like, this is exactly what you need, especially if you're going to hitch your wagons to the core 4. You're going to pay these guys, which they've done this year. They're going to do it in the future, it seems. And you need to have players not making much money producing the way Bob McMann is right now. And it's great to see. And I think you hit the nail on the head when it came to that empty netter. Everything we want for that Maple Leafs team personified in that empty netter, the battle, the compete level to score a damn empty netter. I was really, really impressed, especially after the Blues made it an interesting game to make it 3-2. That's the response. Like moments later, McMann on the ice scores a pivotal goal to give the Leafs that 4-2 victory. I thought was huge. The other thing that stuck out for me too, Rosie, is the way they score their goals. 1 power play goal, 1 shorty from Nylander, an even strength goal, and an empty netter. Very rarely do you see that, but to have that versatility, I think, is huge. To show that you're able to score and affect the scoreboard a variety of different ways, I think is great.
Yeah, for sure. It's not one dimensional, right? Like I said before, you get 4 power play goals. It's like, okay, that's great, but you don't expect to get that every night and don't expect to get it in the playoffs. But it's not. They're spreading it out over all kinds of different ways. They're getting it from the top, they're getting it from the bottom. And I mean, when you have Auston Matthews scoring at the clip that he is, that's one guy. Okay, check. And then go down your lineup. And is everyone else pulling their bloody weight? It's not just, nobody in hockey sits back and watches somebody else. It's not a recipe for anything good. Worry about yourself, bear down, be on the same page as the other guys in the bench, give everything that you got and what you're capable of doing within your skill set that you're asked to do within your role. Do it hard. And holy smokes, if you guys got everyone in the whole league is trying to find that. They're trying to get everyone on the same page, trying to get the most of the role that you're given to each player. You're trying to get that out of the individual and put it towards the collective as the team. And that's the recipe for winning. And everyone's trying to do it. It's not friggin' easy. You don't just snap your fingers and 20 different guys every single night trying to find a formula is not easy. It's not an individual sport, and you just can't force things. But right now, like we said, it's starting to come along. It's starting to clip in it. And when you do that, being on the back end, not having, Norris caliber defensemen all over the place on your back end, it covers that up a little bit. It helps it. And when guys are playing as a team like this and pulling their weight, you end up helping your defensemen out. You're making their life easier. They're not as exposed. They can get you the puck a little quicker. They feel like they have support in the areas where they usually, feel a little bit tense or hung out to dry, and everything just takes care of itself. And it's a pretty thing. And right now they need to be focused on figuring out what that feels like to get this every night and how they can replicate it in the future, whether, you know, Woll comes back or Riley comes back and all these different things. It shouldn't matter. It should, everybody who's on that roster should understand, oh, this is what it feels like. This is what I'm going to do to contribute to it night in and night out. And then you start to find a formula that gets you hot going in the playoffs.
Was really hard fought effort, man. I thought it started early with that Matthew Knies goal. The more I watch that kid, the consistency is going to come, and I think he's going to be an unbelievable player. Again, I just mentioned moments ago how important it is to have players who don't make as much money. I know he's going to get an extension maybe as early as this upcoming offseason, has one more year left on his ELC, and then he'll start to get paid like, more obviously. But I think it's integral to have players, younger players, producing the way Knies is. And of course, having that guy in your top six is massive. Am I the only one just chuckling every time something goes wrong for Tyler Bertuzzi? Like, I don't know how he misses that empty netter. Like, you feel like he's off the schneid. He gets a tap in over the weekend, gets an empty net opportunity and puts it wide. And then obviously the Blues come back. They score that goal. It's a 1-goal game. And then we talked about McMann. It's just been that type of year for Tyler Bertuzzi where, Rosie, I go watch specifically what he did post-trade last year from Detroit to Boston. And I'm like, where the fuck is that Tyler Bertuzzi? You know?
Yeah, I do know. And he's hard to read, that guy. Usually you can feel what a guy's thinking, like a little bit of frustration or, like the facial expressions where you're like, yeah, he's
Nothing.
fighting, but he's just
Yeah.
dead. Like he doesn't show anything. So I don't know how to read this guy. I don't know how he's doing. I don't know if he's frustrating. I don't know how much he cares. I'm sure he cares. You don't get to that level
Yeah.
of competing, being an athlete without caring. I'm not trying to say this guy might not care. I'm just saying he doesn't show anything, and I can't tell where he's at. And maybe that's by design, but knowing the bit that I knew about him before he came to Toronto, he had a lot of personality. Did he not? He had a lot of, he put himself out there, and he was an interesting guy. And now he's just like a zombie, man. And I don't know. I've been on teams before where you got a stud player that's just not scoring, and you're like, man, he's going to break out soon, and he's handling the frustration well, and he's still putting into the work, and he's not giving up. He's the first guy on the ice. He's looking at video. He's doing everything you could possibly do, and just, you got to be patient. You got to be patient. And, sometimes there's a little straw that breaks the camel's back, and then she all comes pouring down and the levee breaks. But sometimes you think they got the monkey off their back, and it's like more of the same the next night. And it's like, fuck, this guy's really in one right here. And as long as he's doing all those things that, you could ever ask a guy to do that's in a slump. And I kind of assume he is. And it's just a waiting game, a patience thing. But yeah, it's not like this has been 15 games, man. This has been the whole season. He seems like a shell of his self and what we expected to get out of him. But again, like in Leafs Nation, man, you can piss down your leg for 82 games. If you show up in the
True.
playoffs and you get it done and you come up with a few big goals or a series clincher or whatever, man, and you can get us into that second round and then show up big again and just be ready to go to battle. Oh, I promise you, we won't even remember Tyler Bertuzzi's regular season if he can find it in the playoffs. So that's kind of the one saving grace is, I mean, as much success as they've had in the regular season, the Toronto Maple Leafs the last few years, what has it gotten them? Sweet FA. I could give two shits what happens in the regular season. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but I'm saying if it's not good and it turns out to be good in the playoffs, I could care less. I mean, that's obviously, it should go without saying, but I mean, there is a saving grace for Tyler Bertuzzi. If you're still trying to find it, do the right things. If you can find it in those playoffs, all will be forgiven, my man. So maybe he's holding on to that. I don't know, but I hope he gets some breaks here soon because you're starting to feel for the guy.
It's wild. And there's been some pushback, by the way, on social media about that narrative that, hey, Tyler Bertuzzi, he's just waiting for the playoffs. He's waiting for the playoffs. And I get that. I mean, the theme of this Maple Leaf season indisputably has been hope. We're just hoping they're going to figure things out at the right time. But then you make that astute point. If you recall the conversation a year ago at this time, Rosie, people wanted Morgan Riley dealt. The guy was finished. He was done. And then look at what he did in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and people sort of forgot what happened in the regular season. And I think, to your point, it's exactly what could happen and transpire here with Tyler Bertuzzi. But again, it's all about hope, isn't it?
Well, it sucks hoping. It sucks being a Maple Leafs fan and hoping for this, hoping for they've been hoping for 60 goddamn years. So
A lot. Yeah.
you feel like a dickhead saying that, but it is what it is. You don't know what's going to happen. No one knows what the future holds, and there's a lot of things on this roster to be happy about and to be excited for and to have hope for, and other things not as much. But if the consistency starts to shore itself up, which kind of seems to, and again, I mean, why on earth would we predict that they're gonna be hot without Morgan Riley? Like, why would we predict that? It's just a stupid thing to say,
Leafs, though.
but we do it and we know it, and it's the Leafs, and it happens exactly as described. Like, it's just odd. There's some anomalies about this team that I don't think anyone can put their finger on, or they would have done it already. But all you can do is focus on the positives and realize that, hey, these guys are starting to figure out, what wins look like that aren't 5-point performances by Matthews, even though he's had some of those coming in down the stretch here. But it just seems like a more well-rounded effort than we've gotten in the past. And I know Matthews is hot and doing some special things, and that's great. And without him, we wouldn't be 4-0 right now without Morgan Riley. Sure. But the wins just seem more complete, more 60-minute efforts, more top to bottom contributions than some of the ones in the past. And Morgan Riley's going to come back here in a game, and what is he back for Arizona? And I think he can pick up where he left off, and hopefully everyone's just got kind of a new little lease on how things look and how things feel. It's weird in a locker room. You go into a game and sometimes it's just like, I just don't know what to expect here. Like, I don't know if we're ready. I don't know if we're prepped. We kind of seem scattered. We don't really seem together. And then sometimes, that clock's ticking down to where you walk out and it's just like, oh my God, I feel sorry for everyone. Like, look at everybody. Like, we're chomping at the bit. We're all together. We all know exactly what it's supposed to look like. We all have it figured out right now, and it's fucking scary. And I feel like they're getting more of that in that locker room. Like, we know what it looks like now, because earlier in the season, it kind of seemed like a coin flip. What are we going to get? I don't know. And I don't think they knew either. And the looks on their faces a lot of the time showed that that's exactly what it was. But lately, I feel like they've kind of maybe found some things that they can build off of, and then they can work with going down the stretch here, because time's ticking here, and we're going to be at the promised land here very soon.
You're going to hate my Betano bet tomorrow. I'll just say that. You know who they're playing. You know the opponent is the Arizona Coyotes. You know the Coyotes have lost 10 straight games. You know what way that bet's going. That's all I'm going to say. Boy Soul writes in, Rosie should have the towel over his shoulder and a hockey water bottle in his hand for this interview. Fucking guys battling out there. He is battling. You're battling big time right now.
I got beads of sweat coming off my nose. I'm dizzy. Like, this is a freaking nightmare. But I'm doing what I can. I'm doing what I can here.
You're emotional.
Yeah,
man.
I don't know. Dude, they're not they're not losing against Arizona. That's
Oh, those are famous last words, dude. You're getting sucked in again. I know what's happening. It is happening again.
what were I think the Oil were tied with them there in the third period, and I threw on my group chat with some boys. I was like, "Man, the Oilers are sure cooled off since the All-Star break, haven't they?" And they're like, "Eh, few," but they end up pulling that off in the end. But no, man, I am not. You go do your Betano thing, but I will not bet on that this year. No chance. But maybe we can
Dude,
have a
we've had this
personal bet
combo
on it.
like 4 times, I think, since we said it, where you're like, "It's not happening. It's not happening," and it happens.
I know.
So
I
that's
do
my
know. I
true
just
decider. That game tomorrow will decide if this Leaf streak is for real or if it's just a fraudulent swing for this team. That's going to decide it. Can they beat Arizona, who hasn't won in 10 games? They're 0-9-1 in the last 10 games.
oh. And Riley's back for it, hey? Or is that his last sit?
Last sit, he's eligible to come back against Vegas on Thursday.
I just no. It can't happen, man. I've said too much already this show. They've found something, they understand, they're
Okay.
together, they've got depth. Auston is hot, goalie's good enough. We're good. No chance.
All right. No, we're gonna stay positive with that. I do like the Matthews anytime goal tomorrow, so maybe we'll play that too because he needs one more. I think the narrative writes itself. Hopefully, Matthews and company can stay away from bottled blonde there in Scottsdale tonight. Anybody who's been out there, the bar scene in Scottsdale is some of the best you'll find in North America. So maybe the Leafs stay away from that, and maybe they rest up for Vegas on Thursday night. Maybe Sheldon's like, you know what? If you can beat Arizona, we'll stay in Sin City on Thursday. We'll go to Denver on Friday. So maybe that's the play with this Maple Leafs team. Want to give some credit as well to Ilya Samsonov, man. Like we've understandably so, he has taken a lot of heat, but this has been a big time narrative and story. When we look back at this Maple Leaf season, we're going to look at the first half, and then we're going to look at the big moment, the epiphany, whatever you want to call it. An Ilya Samsonov season goes on waivers, gets recalled, makes 19 saves in that win against St. Louis. Now has won 7 of 9, 2.10, 916, one shutout since the recall. I thought, again, he was really, really good. Not really called upon in that game, but he's making the saves. That's all I need from my goalie, Rosie.
Yeah, good call, man. Like, oh, was he down and out, man? Like the contrast from last season when he was playing good, where it's like we've got our Maple Leafs goalie here. You know, he can look so damn good.
Yeah.
And then this year, man, it was just like, oh no, like over and over again. And like, it's like, okay, he's going to pull himself out of it tonight. He gets worse. He gets worse. He gets worse. You can't play him anymore. You put him in the minors and I don't even think he showed up to the minors. I don't know what that was, some kind of a mental reset, but whatever it was fantastic. And I hope he realizes what he did because I remember when he came back up, man, and I think I said, this is make or break. This is either Sammy's back or this will be the last time you see him in a Maple Leafs uniform, because if he's a funnel that night and they've tried everything, they can't afford to even try anymore. Like your shot's done. The window is not open forever in that league. And I remember that game. She showed up and he shut the door and he made some massive stops. Next game, same thing. Third game, he's like, Sammy's back here, boys. And he's been very consistent for 7 and 9 since that is fantastic. And I mean, I feel like I'm the only one thinking about Wolsey like coming back here. It's just seriously, how many weeks has it been? Like 12? He's been out forever with this goddamn ankle. Like, get the kid in net. But we knew how bad it was or how finicky these ankles are, but it's fucking the end of February. We haven't seen this guy. Like, holy, is he coming back or what?
Hey, here's a PSA. So they've been promoting the fuck out of Law and Order Toronto. I
I know.
think Jay Rosehill should make a cameo appearance because you since day one you're like, what's going on with Joseph Woll? Like you can't get over this, right?
No, it's forever, man. I want to see this kid back in. I think he's legit, and
What's the
I
rush?
know he's legit, huh?
What's the rush?
I don't know. I'm an impatient man.
Fair.
I want to see
Fair.
what he's got. I want to get this team on the rails and choo-chooing into the end of the season. But yeah, no, obviously they're not rushing him, and having Sammy in there, doing well. And Martin Jones has been, going back to the beginning of the season when we got this guy. It's like, well, why did we get this guy? And well, we might need him down the stretch. And well, they did some finicky stuff with his contracts because we're going to have to put him on waivers with our salary cap snafu here. But they did some trickery in there, and no one's going to want to pick him up because they got this big whack. They're going to have to pay him the second they grab him. And it worked out well. And smokes, man. I mean, just like the year before with Shalgren, imagine we didn't have Martin Jones. We would be not in a playoff position. We'd be battling to get in the playoffs or out of a wild card at least. And we don't have that problem right now because of Martin Jones. So goaltending situation, for as much heat as it takes, we've got some damn good goaltending throughout the whole pipeline with the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. And I'm still got my eyes on Woll, man. I think that kid is an absolute stud, and I'm really excited for him to get back in there. And I feel like he's going to be the number one guy going into the playoffs.
2 months and 2 weeks, so roughly around 10 weeks what we're looking at. He was injured back on December 7th. So monitor for the very latest on the Joseph Woll front. And again, we got to get you on Law and Order Toronto. I think that would be a phenomenal cameo, and they can flash on the screen at the Leafs Nation 401 where you can subscribe on YouTube. I think it would do wonders for the podcast.
I think it would do a lot of damage to the new show.
Yes. You talk about damage, you talk about goaltending too. It's such a volatile position. It's so unpredictable. Every year is like a different story with this team. Nevertheless, this segment brought to you by Douglas, named Canada's best mattress on Canadian living. Douglas is loved by more than 200,000 Canadians, and they're backed by over 10,000 five-star reviews. Every mattress order comes with a free comfort sleep bundle, 2 memory foam pillows with pillow protectors, 1 luxurious cotton sheet set, and 1 mattress protector. That's a $650 value, yours for free when you order a Douglas mattress. Now order today at douglas.ca/LMT. That's douglas.ca/LMT. The power play is heating up again, Rosie, which is great to see. They're 1 for 2 against St. Louis, 6 for the last 10, 12 for the last 20. So they're humming at like a 60% rate right now. It's crazy. We speculated on yesterday's podcast they were going to go with a 5-forward set. They didn't. They went with Liljegren, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Bertuzzi, which meant John Tavares on PP2. I can't remember the last time that happened, but they actually look pretty good. Do you think this is something they continue with and run with when Morgan Rielly comes back? Would you?
Who knows, man? I don't know what he likes to mix things up so much. I mean, you got Mitch Marner playing defense this week, so I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't think you're gonna hurt Morgan Rielly by not having him back in his position when he comes. Lots of things work well, and then when a guy comes back, especially your stud D man, you think, oh, great job, everyone. You guys did well while our stud was gone, and good job. That was the expectations. You pulled that off, and tip of the cap to you. Now we got him back, and away we go with things as usual. And I don't know, a PP1, PP2. There's just lots of firepower on this team, man. They're very offensively gifted. So, I mean, I don't know how much Sheldon Keefe is worrying about, feelings and guys' emotions or their confidence getting hurt or their egos, as far as who's on that number 1 unit and who's getting the most minutes and how much does that first PP chew up. It would be tough, but I'd like to think these guys are professionals and they're going to roll with whatever's working at the time. But I think Keefe obviously is not scared to mix it up, and he's going to do his best to kind of get everyone out there unless you're finding something that's just slam dunk, the guarantee way to go. And I don't see anything crazy that's to say these 5 guys are the only guys that should be out there. They mix it up like crazy, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had another look here the next game they play, because it's just Keefe does not seem to mind really mixing it up.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen everything, especially over the last couple of years doing this show when it comes to lineup configuration. But I think once Rielly comes back, I would give Rielly, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Bertuzzi an extended look. I mean, in essence, and again, I'm not trying to compare the players, but Bertuzzi and Tavares sort of are running the same game. Like, you want that guy in front, crease front presence, if you will. And I that's where my curiosity stands when it comes to Bertuzzi. You need those mucky goals in the playoffs. Not to say JT can't score those goals, because he does all the time. But I think Bertuzzi brings a bit of a different look to that power play. So I want to see how that looks over like a 10, 15 game span. And to that point, egos are part of the game. You know it. You've been in an NHL locker room or two. John Tavares just seems like a guy, he just cares about winning. Like, and I know it's so easy to say that about a lot of players, but JT's accomplished a lot of the personal accolades in his career. He's been very consistent with this team. I think there's a reason maybe why JT's the guy to take that step back. I think obviously you want to rest him, you want him fresh for the playoffs, but he's also a guy. I don't think this is going to bother very much. Like I think in the grand scheme of things, he's there for this team to win. He wants to win with this Maple Leafs team when it matters most, and that's what I would do. I really want to see what Bertuzzi looks once Riley's back, how he looks, how much different PP1 could look with him on it. You know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you about Tavares. I mean, there's a reason a guy is captain material like him, and it's not
Sure.
because he's the guy that drags his freaking lip around the locker room when he doesn't get what he wants, like some little prima donna bitch. He's not that guy. He understands hockey. He understands teams. He understands what it takes to win, even if he hasn't won at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
He gets it, and if he sits down with Sheldon Keefe and they say, "Hey, listen, we're trying to get Bertuzzi going here, as you know, blah blah blah. We're going to give you your touches on the second unit. We're going to try to keep it short with those guys and get you out there. But listen, John, like we want to get you a little bit of rest here coming into the playoffs. We're going to need you. Like you're going to be our warrior and our leader in the playoffs. So we don't want to burn you out right now. And for all those reasons, it sounds like this is going to work out for the next little while. Is getting you on the PP2, getting you a little bit of a blow, and seeing if we can get Bertuzzi going." I think for all I know, he's the one that came up with that idea. You know, I have no qualms about him getting his ego in the way or anything like that. So totally agree with you. If there's a guy that's going to take a step back and be okay with it and understand it's for the betterment of the team, I would think it was John Tavares for sure.
What'd you think of the new look lines? We've seen them the last little while, the last couple shifts at least in that game. But for the majority of that hockey game, we had Knies, Matthews, Marner, Bertuzzi, Domi, Nylander. I guess a new look second line, and I guess a third line here with Robertson, Tavares, and McMann. Spreading the wealth. We've seen them do this before, and again, you can't read in too much, as we mentioned, to the lines because they change on a game by game basis. But anything stick out for you here? Like I like Bob McMahon getting a bit of a promotion, playing with a guy like John Tavares. Great to see that.
Yeah, me too. I just really liked that Bertuzzi, Domi, Robertson line. I just thought that has potential out the ass. Just it seems really well rounded, and I didn't even get a chance to get used to it, and it's gone. And that's why I don't. I mean, I don't crunch line combinations on this show, but I just don't see a point in it. I mean, you could literally be talking about how great this line is on Thursday, and on Saturday it's a different line. So I mean, I've had my qualms with it before. I thought it was a problem last year. They're going into the playoffs, man. I mean, the last couple of games, the last couple of weeks, you think you'd shore up something just to get some familiarity with the players, saying this is what we're rolling with, boys. We've had 80 some games to figure out what feels good, and this is it. This is what we're, and those guys didn't even know who's fucking playing with who game one of the playoffs. And I can't say I agree with that, but at this point in the season, I'm not going to argue with Sheldon Keefe. You know, I just I would like to hear his reasoning on, why do you mix it up so much? You know, like is that helpful, or
I know.
is there a line where it would be too much for you, where this is too much shaking up the lines, or is that non-existent for you? I don't know. But I would like to see a little bit more consistency. Like I said, that line that we talked about probably this week with Domi and Bertuzzi, who had signs of getting it going here and finding their game and what they were supposed to be around here. Put him with a guy like Nick Robertson, who all of a sudden he's playing with two guys with some more experience than him that are starting to find their game. And you find lightning in a bottle like that. Here we go. That sounded like a no-brainer to let that get some time to fester, but no, she gone. So I don't know. I'm not really into the lineup thing. I don't know what to tell you, man. They're not consistent enough to even talk about.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. Like, you got to stay level-headed with this team because, like, a week ago, we're talking about how it's imperative they add a forward, and now it's like they got an abundance of depth. What do they do with Calle Yarncrow coming back at some point in time? Where do you fit him into this lineup? So that's why I try to stay even keel. I'm under the belief they still need at least one top nine forward. In a perfect world, and this is probably not going to happen, I'm adding two defensemen. I'm adding a top nine forward, preferably a 3C. That's going to be hard, easier said than done. I get that, but that's in a perfect world. Has this changed your perception or your perspective on what this team needs between now and the deadline? It hasn't for me. It's a long, long season. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. Right now, they're feeling good about life.
Yeah, it hasn't really. I just don't see the pathway to getting everything you just described. Like,
True. Yeah.
you're gonna make these additions that are gonna be worthwhile to make you say, yeah, we're doing this because it's definitely making our team better. Okay, well, what are you giving up to get three guys, especially like, right-handed defenseman that everybody wants? How are you the one that gets that without giving up? Like, you're gonna have to give up way too much, man. It's kind of scary, and there's no guarantee that those guys are gonna come into the Maple Leafs locker room and instantly just make it better and make an impact. I mean, we've seen that before where it just doesn't work that way. The vortex of Toronto sometimes just is not as predictable as other outfits. But
Hmm.
I mean, I would love to get like Noah Hannafin is just constantly now all of a sudden the guy that seems to be, potentially coming to Toronto from the stuff that I read, and it's like, oh, that's switched in a hurry. But I definitely think we just need a rugged playoff performing defenseman. And if that's all we get, I'm okay with it, because I don't want to sell the whole farm and, put ourselves behind the eight ball for years to come when we make these moves that may not even make us better this year. And it's like, God, that was a misstep. And I don't want Tree Living to have the whole market jump on him and tear him apart like they love to do. So I don't know. I'm all right with just getting a single defenseman if we can get the best one available and get him in there right at the deadline and say, this is who we have. And then have everyone else like do what we talked about at the beginning of the show. Like, they're on the same page. We know what it feels like to win. We know what it feels like to screw it up and to not be prepared and to have these lackluster efforts and to have this group mature as a team with all that leadership around them. Auston Matthews being one of the main guys, even not the oldest guy, or that's irrelevant to me. He's kind of the engine of this whole thing, and everyone else around them, like you say, you get the Domies and you get the Bertuzzis to step up and do what they were asked for. I mean, it is set up for things to go well. I'm not guaranteeing that's going to happen. Nobody knows, but I'm okay with them just getting one additional piece at the deadline and not selling the farm and seeing what they can do with it.
You have to be realistic, and there's that crowd out there that's like, Auston Matthews is having one of those years, a historical season. How could you not go for it? But again,
I
you
think
look
he's going to
around
have a
at
few of
teams that have
those.
won. Pardon me?
I don't think this is going to be the last time he is a goal
Yeah,
scoring
exactly.
machine.
That's my rebuttal. And I think you look at teams that have won in recent memory, they really haven't made, like, the perfect example last year is the New York Rangers. They got Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko, and you sort of forget chemistry is part of a roster. And then conversely, I thought the Ivan Barbashev pickup last year for Vegas was incredible. Arturi Lehkonen a couple years ago. I think that's the approach you have to take, where it's not necessarily the player that everybody wants, but the player that makes the most sense. And I think, again, to me, it keeps coming back to Chris Tanev. I just think that type of player is what that blue line direly needs. Like, you need that
I agree.
shutdown guy who's going to jump in front of the puck, like play that heavy style, that heavy brand in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that's the guy. And again, they're still attached. There seems to, it's hit a bit of an impasse where it's like Calgary wants a first rounder, the Leafs want a package pick. So we'll see who blinks first. But I think Tanev's the guy who makes the most sense for me in terms of moving the needle the right way for this Leafs team. Because I tend to agree with you. I wouldn't big brain the operation too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the chemistry thing is a huge deal. You can bring these studs in and get worse. I mean, it happens out there. I'm not saying that there's reason to believe that will happen, but I mean, we don't have enough to give up. And if we give up everything and it doesn't work, which a lot of the times it doesn't, like you just suggested with the Rangers there, and things aren't always as they seem. Sometimes you got to believe in the group that you have, and and trust that the steps they're taking all season long and the lessons that they're learning are sinking in, and you got to trust and believe that they understand what it takes, hopefully come playoff time. I don't know if that's the case, but I do know that it's possible, and I know that stranger things have happened. Look at the Boston Bruins last year. Everyone just thought they were just going to walk their way
Exactly.
to the Stanley Cup
Yeah.
final. Not the case, man. Like, things happen out there, and it's not always as easy as, let's go sign the best guy. Let's give all our first rounders and just go get the best guy, and then we're going to win. Like, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't.
Yep.
And it comes from the group and being that team that I was talking about earlier in the show. Like, when they find shit and their backs against the wall, and they didn't really have a whole lot of reasons to be, 4-0 besides Auston Matthews the last 4 games, but they found ways and they got contributions from other people, and that just screams playoffs to me. That's what you need. but I would love to get a Chris Tanev 100%. Like that guy's
Yeah.
out there laying it down, blocking a big one-timer shot where you think things broke down and the goalie's kind of out of position. He lays it down and blocks that shot. Everyone on the bench is so jacked up, kicking the boards and shit. The next guy wants to go out there. I want to fucking do that. And then it's contagious, and everyone's playing like that style of hockey that Chris Tanev plays. It's nice because it is contagious, and I want a little bit more on that roster. So I'm certainly not saying don't do anything, but
Yeah.
I don't think I'm subscribing to sell the farm.
Yeah, work around the edges. I agree. And just to clarify from the chat, some people saying that I said that I would give up a first rounder for Tanev. That's not the case. The only way I give up a first rounder if it includes a guy coming back from just more than this year. I don't want a rental for a first rounder. And I think you outweight the process when it comes to Tanev. Nobody's prepared at this time to give up a first round pick. You just got to monitor very, very closely. And I still think he's the guy who makes the more sense. And maybe the Flames bite back a bit on their asking price there. With more than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada, Great Clips is the world's largest hair salon brand and official hair salon of the NHL. Salons are locally owned and operated and open 7 days a week. Your time is valuable. Use the Great Clips check-in app. See the wait time, check in on your phone, and get the haircut when you want it. For more information, check out greatclips.com. Great Clips, it's going to be great. And speaking of great, the Maple Leafs have been great without Morgan Rielly, right? 4-0-0 in this 4-game span, 19-2-1 dating back to last season. All-time, Rosie, 37-15-5. What is happening? I mean, you run out of decor, and it was very similar to last year, right? They ran out of decor yesterday with Brody Liljegren, Benoit McCabe, Marshall Rafai, who made his NHL debut, and Max Lajoie. Like that's the who's who of the NHL, the Toronto Marlies, I think. Not the NHL, but the Marlies.
The two guys don't even have a graphic for
I
their
know.
bloody names. It's yeah, it's wild, man. It's good. It's a good thing. I mean, you could look at it however you want and be all negative and say, well, what are these prima donnas? They think they can just show up and get things done, and then you got to put in some ragtag lunch pail group to actually get the job done. Yeah, you could go about it that way if you wanted, but I choose to look at it and say, hey, there's a feeling in that locker room of putting rubber to the road there and saying, hey, we all got to pull our weight. And there's a little bit of nervousness going on. And, when, Mitch was gone, Tavares was gone, I think everyone just expected to get blown out there. I think it was against St. Louis, and it just didn't happen. Guys figured out a way to get that win and to play together and to spread it out. Like, we're scoring in different ways. The power play is good. The PK is good. We got depth scoring. Our defensemen are kind of shutting it down, like playing their asses off. It's a good thing, in my opinion. I have no reason to believe that that's going to change when Morgan Rielly gets back in here in the next couple games. And I'm hoping that they've learned lessons and become, comfortable with this identity of, oh yeah, this is how it works. Whatever that is to them, whatever that means to them, play that way some more and find that formula more often, and spread it around the way you have been. They've been good team wins, man, and I'm not going to say anything negative about them because they've been solid.
Is it too early to say that they've used sort of Rielly in that situation as a galvanizing moment? Like, I know I was trying to force feed that narrative when it went down, and lo and behold, they've won 4 straight games since it went down. But can you realistically, and again, you could probably speak better to this because you've been in a room where the roster looks at that and says, hey, that could be our one shining moment, our galvanizing moment to go on a long stretch. Like, I always like to compare last year to Florida, and Keith Tkachuk calls out the team, calls them soft, and then they go on this massive run. Can the Leafs really utilize something like that? Because it's short term, but it feels like it's really lit their asses here.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, that was huge news in the hockey world. That was everywhere, man. I was like, holy smokes, are we dealing with a lot here right now? Because everyone was talking about it. It was huge. And I mean, I don't think you draw it up in the sense of, well, if one of our guys cross-checks someone in the face and takes a 5-gamer, I really think that's going to be the spark that gets the boys going. That's not really the ideal situation, but it was what it was. Usually the Leafs are the ones getting abused, getting taken advantage of. People think they're the ones whining all the time. And this narrative was, screw you. You screwed around with us. You disrespected us. We buried your ass. We don't give a shit what the outcome is. We can do just fine without that guy because we'll rally around him and rattle off the wins exactly like they've done. And it could be a little bit of a rallying point, like a different shot of identity, because it was a different feeling in that locker room, I'm sure. We just roughed the guy up so bad, and someone did something disrespectful that we didn't like, and we went and freaking handled it absurdly, more than necessary. But we don't care. They're not used to being in that position. And I'm not saying, oh, yeah, that's what sparked them, but it might not hurt at all. It might be a different look around the locker room. It might give them a little bit more of a us against the world, or a little bit more confidence, or a little bit more of, yeah, no one does screw with us like that. Like, piss on him. Good for Morgan. We'll win while he's out and wait for him to get back. And, in the meantime, guys that we've spoken of have stepped up big time. Guys are playing their first NHL games. Guys that you barely even know their name are stepping in there and contributing to wins. So, it's all good, man. It's all good. It's solid team stuff that I think we've been begging for in this market. And a person could argue with me and be like, okay, Rosie, Auston Matthews has scored like 10 goals in the last 3 games. So like,
True.
relax. That's the answer to everything right there. But I think if you look at it, it's not necessarily that. They are playing well top to bottom and spreading it out, and they are 60-minute efforts. It's not sloppy, gross, high risk hockey that's getting covered up by Auston Matthews burying hat tricks. I think it's better than that.
Yeah, they're playing smart hockey. They're sort of simplifying, which I've been endorsing for the last little while. And I dare I say there's a bit of belief within that team that we can play a certain brand and win games. Like, I know they've beaten St. Louis twice in this 4-game span, but the Blues were hot before this whole stretch, right? They were playing consistent hockey, and I think they're playing more successful hockey, if that makes sense. Like, they're still making mistakes, but to me, it just seems like a team that's believing a bit more. And it's hard to say because the sample size is relatively small at 4 games, but I could foresee a moment like this really being like a rallying moment for this team where they're like, you know what? We're the Leafs. We have Auston Matthews. We have Mitch Marner. We have JT, Nylander, Riley. Like, let's go on a run. Let's get this going here, right? And again, you could speak more to it. You've been in a room, but I really feel like moments like this can ignite a team. And sometimes it may, in the grand scheme of things, feel and look small, but it really isn't. I think everything you just laid out makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to get too high. No,
Yeah,
we get low sometimes on this show, and
sure we do.
in Leaf Nation people do, and it's usually rightfully so. And right now is a time to be optimistic and positive. And I'm not planning parades or anything like that, but all you can ask a team to do is go in the right direction, and take care of some of the ailments that they have out on the ice during games. And I think they have been doing that, and they have been moving towards it. And are they doing it in a traditional way where, not necessarily? You got guys out, you got guys stepping up that you didn't really expect, and goaltender situations kind of, looking solid with more light at the end of the tunnel and hope on the horizon as well. So again, don't want to build mountains or anything, but I agree with you. They're looking solid in ways that I think are important, where it's 60 minutes, it's the whole team effort, it's effort that gets it done, it's attention to detail that gets it done, it's playing defense first and playing as a 20-man unit, saying we're all going to do it this way tonight, boys. And I just want them to continue on that trajectory of not giving a shit who they're playing against. I don't care if they're playing Vancouver or the Rangers or Boston or Phoenix. I don't care. Worry about yourself. Show up and do the same damn thing, and just trust in the fact that you can rattle off W's against anyone in this league. You've proven that. Worry about yourself, and, learn the lessons that you've learned throughout the season by, you can't take those nights off. You can't play fancy street hockey style of shit. You got to work together, and things will come. You'll get your points. You'll get your cookies. Everyone will chip in. Your stars will be your stars. It's just got to look a little bit more of a team first mentality, which they've been showing that lately. So you got to tip their cap to them and say, good on you. Keep going with that type of formula.
This is what William Nylander had to say after the win against St. Louis in St. Louis. We've answered the bell, and I think Mo kind of lit the fire under the team. So I think, yeah, we're battling for Mo. So there's your answer. I don't know what else he's going to say, but I think the Leafs are playing really, really well right now, and it's great to see. This segment is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece Program and an unbeatable pricing policy. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. That's charmdiamondcenters.com. So what's ahead? This 4-game road trip, 3 left. Wednesday at Arizona, Thursday at Vegas, Saturday at Colorado. The the schedule the next 3 to 4 weeks is rigorous. They got some really good teams. We highlighted earlier on their record against the Western Conference, so that is a positive. They're 19-5-2 against the West this season. But the big narratives, the big storylines on Wednesday, Alex Kerfoot, the anytime goal, that's going to hit because he's on Arizona right now. They've dropped 10 in a row, but Auston Matthews hunting number 50. Can't wait to see what happens there. I think it would be perfect if he gets it in Arizona in front of 4,000 people.
4,000 friends and family. Yeah, that'd be cool. I don't know how much it would mean to him, how much of an affinity he has to the Coyotes or anything like that. I imagine some more people that he knows would be at the game, and to put up 50 would be cool. How about him just like not even, I guess when you score that often, it
He's so
becomes
good.
not as big of a deal. But I mean, he used to get in shit for having too big of celebrations when he makes it 4-2, when he scores the second goal and he does a celly that maybe it's a nice goal that he really wanted to hit that, what he's been working on or whatever, and people bitch about him. So maybe that's it, but he's just celebrating with who gives a shit. Like, this is a joke to me. This league's too easy for me. I'm scoring at will out here, which I don't mind at all. But yeah, tick off 50. I don't give a shit when you do it. Tick off 70. I don't really care. Just keep scoring the way you're scoring, and the team playing the way they are behind you is all I'm really concerned about. And I'm sure that's the same mentality with Sheldon Keefe right now.
Let's get to 80. I want to see 80 goals from Auston Matthews this season, but 49 and 53 is just sheer insanity for Matthews. So maybe he hits 50 in AZ coming up on Wednesday. We'll preview that game again coming up tomorrow. The Betano wrap-up is presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19+. Please play responsibly. Major announcement. Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024, taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano on their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. Something I like tonight, I like New Jersey over Washington. I think the Devils will get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're still 4 points out, and they're 4 points up on Washington. They can create some separation in the standing. So that's probably the play I would look at. I like the Victor Arvidsson shot prompt tonight too. There's a couple different things. Busy 8-game slate in the NHL.
I thought you had something coming up in the Arizona game down the road. You're not going to touch on that yet?
Well, it's tomorrow, buddy. We got to preview that game tomorrow, right?
Okay. Victor Arvidsson shot prop. There you have it. I like it.
And the Devils. But yeah, tomorrow I'm playing Matthews. I'm playing Arizona tomorrow too. That's the play. I'm sorry. That's the play. That's the people agree in the chat too. That is the play. This is what the Leafs do. This is the defining moment in the Leafs season. If they can beat the fucking Arizona Coyotes in front of 6 people, they're cup contenders. Okay.
What's the line on what's the value there with that game?
It's not out yet. We're going to go through that. We got a whole show tomorrow to break that down, man. It's going to be an intricate breakdown. Okay.
Well, I might be dead, so you could do it on your own if that's the case.
Hey, dude, you've battled. You brought it today. Appreciate that. I'm sure you played a couple games in your career just under the weather. I was even thinking last night I was going to tweet at you, but then I decided not to, that Auston Matthews scored more goals in 3 games than you did your entire career. You scored 5.5. He has 7 in the last 3.
Yeah, well, he's pretty good. I'm not.
I think you're pretty good too. So,
yeah, he's scoring at a ridiculous clip, man. Well, if they would have utilized me properly, I would have had more. But
exactly,
I mean, can't change that now.
You could have been Bobby McMann for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I have that sentiment, that feel too. So we'll leave it at that. We'll come back stronger tomorrow. Feel better, okay?
Sounds good. See you then.
Okay, thanks to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401 Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcasts. Again, a reminder, if you're listening to us in podcast form, leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a great comment too. That'd be fantastic. Leafs Morning Take at the Leafs Nation 401. Many thanks to producer Vic. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Back on Wednesday to preview the Leafs and the Coyotes. Take care.
Yeah.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.